go. So hi, Lindsay, Michelle, and Jessica. I can't believe I'm finally writing an email to you guys. I've been listening to your podcast and really enjoying it. This podcast is the best ever. Thank you for your enthusiastic, energetic podcast. By the way, I'm writing this email to ask one thing I'm really confused about these days. I've been learning English through your podcast, transcripts, and another online course materials, and these are all about American English. As I've studied using these things, I think I'm pretty comfortable with speaking American English, and my pronunciation definitely sounds like American English. But the problem is, when it comes to writing texts or emails, I keep feeling confused about the word I should choose between British and American, such as mum versus mom, or lift versus elevator, flavor with OUR versus OR. Because the person I talk to most of the time uses British English, and I didn't want to seem wrong. And the funniest thing is sometimes when I talk with a person who uses American English, then I start to use American English. I feel like I keep losing my identity. Could you give me some answers on how to deal with this? Thanks. And lots of love from Ji-hee from South Korea. And then also she's asking if we have any plans to do an event in Korea, just like the Tokyo Power English Weekend in Japan. Wow, good question. She says she's jealous of our Japanese listeners. So, well, I hope, Ji-hee, I hope you stay in touch and stay connected to All Ears English to hear about it. If we do launch that show, you'll have to listen to find out. We'll see.
Awesome. Okay, great. Okay. I love this question.
Yeah, this is right up your alley, Michelle. It's right up your alley because you love British culture. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I love that you mentioned, the identity here, right? It's just so good that you're thinking about these differences at such a high level. Like it's not, what are the differences? But it's like, how should I use them? When should I use them? And that language is identity.
Oh yeah, it sounds like this listener is really active with the language. Like she's not just observing it from the outside.
Yeah. Oh,
this listener is like really participating and swaying the accent back and forth depending on who they're talking to. So good.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny. It made me think of, so I was a theater major in college. Mm-hmm. And as a theater major, we spelled it with an R-E, Theatre. Okay. I don't know why. It was just like mostly spelled that way, unless it was just me. That's the British way.
Okay, that's the British spelling. Okay, what's the American spelling for that word?
Theater. Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think it says RE on my degree. I'm not 100% sure, but whenever I write it, I always write it with an RE.
That might have something to do with like academia,
probably
wanting to be more British or something. I don't know. Probably something regarding academia and the traditions in academia.
Yeah. But whenever I write, and like, if I write movie theater, I'll do it ER. But for some reason, when I say anything with the word theater, like to see a show or talking about my major, I always do RE. And sometimes my friends make fun of me because they think it looks like, I'm trying to be so fancy and formal. Right. And so I've tried to stop it now. So that's what this made me think of, like switching the spelling depending on who your audience is.
Yeah, it's theater, not theater.
Exactly. So this is interesting. So there are two, major parts to this question that we'll talk about. So one is about spelling, and one is more about just like word choice. Right. Okay. Talking about, there's a lot of overlap here, but, we have a few, 3-step set of questions that you can ask yourself when you're deciding, what should you do, right? Should you use, if you know both of them, what should you use, especially if you're more leaning towards one in your everyday life? Okay.
Yeah, I like this. So let's answer this question for our listener here.
Okay. So, I don't know why I'd formatted it like that, but just, the question, what is the first question, that our listener could ask?
Guys, we love your questions. The best episodes come from your questions. So go over to the iTunes store or the App Store, write us a review, and inside your review, ask a question. Also, let us know what you think about the show, and we'll read your name out loud on the show. Thanks, guys. Okay, so you could ask yourself, for a listener, who is the audience? Who is in the audience? Who are we talking to?
Right. Are you talking to a friend? Are you talking to a coworker? Right?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to? If the person is closer to you, I don't think you have to worry about changing to the British English if you're talking to someone British, because I think that the person will understand that you're mostly learning American English, and I think they also think that the differences are endearing as well. I mean, I can't speak for all British people, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had the experience of talking to students, even just not just our students, our listeners, but also just friends that I have that are international people, right? Who have learned English in England or in Australia, and I hear that accent and it makes me smile. It's like, oh, cool,
yeah.
This is kind of fun. Like,
Right.
I see that this person, it becomes clear, like, you know, that this person is just learning a different accent because they're
Right.
learning mostly with British people or Australian people. It's kind of fun. Like, it's endearing, as you said, Michelle.
Right, exactly. So, actually, we're talking about the vocabulary words as well here. So it's kind of so we'll get into that a little bit. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I always, for me, like, not just with the spelling, but also with the conversation. So this is the vocabulary words part. So so I think our listener mentioned lift and elevator. I mean, I always like it when I'm talking to a British friends and they spell words like differently, or they say lift instead of elevator. And I would not expect them to change to the American spelling, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of flexibility here.
Yeah. But what do you think about in a work situation?
You know, I think it probably depends on your work, but if you're working in a place that is so narrow-minded, like, is this listener working in the US? Did we get that information?
No, they didn't. They just mentioned that they talk to a lot of British people, it sounds like. Correct us if we're wrong.
Okay, but they're learning American English, right?
Yes, and speak with a mostly American English accent, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like it'd be a very narrow-minded workplace if you said lift in an American context and they said, no, use the word elevator. We don't